and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations. Today we are looking at the difference between stamping with Distress ink and Distress Oxide ink. First, we're going to take a look at Distress Oxide inks. So here is the entire, I'm doing a rainbow. The stamp I'm using is exactly the same in both cards, and it's a stamp by Catherine Pooler, and it's Big Thanks. And what I'm going to do is actually use the finger sponge daubers to ink and blend directly onto the stamp. Now, the reason I wanted to do this is because a lot of people ask, well, can you stamp with distress inks? Sure, you can. They're not necessarily going to give you the best results, just plain old distress inks. And I think that has to do with how fine the line is that you are stamping versus how thick the line is that you're stamping, and how many times you're planning on stamping it, what kind of paper you're stamping on, and all of those kinds of things I think play a role in how pretty the line is that you get with distress inks. Distress Oxide inks, however, stamp really well pretty much no matter what, because they are this combination of pigment ink and dye ink, and they blend really well too. So I'm just taking the sponge daubers and daubing the ink onto my stamp, and I am stamping them twice in most cases to make sure that I get a good blend between the two colors on that one element of the stamp, and to make sure that I get really good coverage on the paper as well, so they match up as much as possible. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the same exact colors of distress ink, only they're going to be mini cubes, and I don't think I showed that. I think I'm already zoomed in by the time I start doing that, but I'm using the exact same method. And I left all of this in here just so that you could see the difference. Now see how solid that image is, and it's also kind of, the colors themselves are bright, but the image is rather soft in that it looks like it's pigment ink. It looks opaque. You can't see the paper behind it. And I did mess up on the stamping a little bit, but I didn't remake the card. You can see where it kind of, I didn't push the card panel down into the corner exactly where it's supposed to be, and I messed up my stamping a little bit, but that's okay. I fixed it. Just looks like a little bit of a shadow behind the end. It's okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. So the other thing that I wanted to note is that at the end I'm going to put the word "you" that's included in the stamp set in black soot in the middle of the word. The pictures at the end of the video really show the difference in Distress Oxide ink and regular distress inks. And the reason I say that is because I want you to pay attention to how the "you" looks on top of the Distress Oxide inks. And the first three pictures at the end are going to be the Distress Oxide, and then the last three will be the distress inks. Once I stamp the "you", because remember distress inks react to water and they oxidize, the places where I stamp the word "you" in black soot actually oxidize underneath the black soot, so you see it. So you see the lines of the other colors underneath the black soot of the Distress Oxide inks. It softens the "you" in those places, so it actually looks like it's kind of like a stripy gray. It's kind of a really cool effect, but you need to be sure that you understand that that's how that could look when you are working with Distress Oxide inks, that once you add that moisture to it, it's going to oxidize and it's going to change the color of it underneath. Between the Oxide inks and the regular distress inks, I really wanted to make sure that I cleaned my stamps, and I am cleaning this with a stamp cleaner and then a microfiber cloth. And the microfiber cloth, I think, cleans stamps better than anything. You can really actually scrub stains off of stamps with it. Just have to give it a little elbow grease. But that's what I use to clean my stamps most of the time anyway, dry, or I'll just dampen that microfiber cloth and wipe the stamp off. Okay, So here I am finishing up, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm using a sponge dauber. I didn't want to change my method of inking in between doing all of this. I wanted to ink everything up the exact same way so that you could see the differences in the results of this. Black soot is a really dark color, and black soot oxide ink is super, 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 super dark. Unless you get it wet, and then it has that oxidation effect to it. Okay, so now I'm going to do the exact same thing all over again with the distress inks. And while I'm doing this, oh, let me tell you what colors I used for my rainbow effect here. I used candied apple, carved pumpkin, mustard seed, mowed lawn, peacock feathers, salty ocean, wilted violet, picked raspberry, and black soot. Those are the colors that I used to do this, and I have all of the distress oxide inks, and then I have some regular distress inks, and I use the mini cubes for those most of the time. I will say that I probably need to buy re-inkers for some of those. Some of them are still super juicy and some of them aren't. So anyway, so that's what I did. Now, I'm going to tell a little story while we're watching me do this, and pay attention to the difference in the brightness of the colors. And you'll really see it at the end here, the difference in them, especially just the vibrancy of them, of the colors are so different. The colors are exactly the same, but the vibrancy of them is way different. Okay, so lately I have actually been listening to books, audiobooks, instead of listening to music and stuff, even though music keeps me sane most days. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks, but I also noticed that the Wizarding World, because you know I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, the Wizarding World has been having stars read different chapters from the books. And the first one was Dan Radcliffe, and then the lady that played Hermione on the stage adaptation, I can't remember what her name is, but she read a chapter, and then Stephen Fry read a chapter. I could listen to Stephen Fry all day long. That man was amazing reading that book. He did all of the voices so well, and it was just absolutely amazing. Then I saw noticed the other day in my email that David Tennant, and if y'all know me and y'all saw my TARDIS card, and I talked about it the other day, that David Tennant is my doctor. And there's a running joke in the fandoms of, if you're a Harry Potter fan and you are a Doctor Who fan, that I know you've seen that meme that is David Tennant as Barty Crouch. You have David Tennant as Barty Crouch, and you know in that character, David Tennant does that tongue thing. And then there's the episode, The Doctor's Daughter, that he is in the jail cell and he's like pressing his, I think it's the Doctor's Daughter, but he presses his face up against the jail cell, and everybody, there's that meme that's like your Barty Crouch is showing or something like that. Anyway, I just I love David Tennant. I love to listen to him talk. Absolutely love to listen to him talk. Not a Shakespeare fan, but I have Shakespeare that he has done so I can watch it just so I can hear him talk. I am that girl. Actually, one year my friends at work set up a cube for me to do for a birthday party for me, and they did Doctor Who theme, and people like dressed up and all kinds of stuff for me. It was pretty flippin' awesome. So I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, which is why I did a TARDIS card back in 2018, and then worked on it a little bit and redid a TARDIS. And if you're a huge Doctor Who fan, go a couple videos back, and there's a link to the free cut file over on my website so you can get your TARDIS. And then the stamp that I used is actually a digital stamp from the greeting farm, and it is to me all I can see. I can't see a little boy dressed up or a man dressed up. All I see is David Tennant with that hair. Oh, it's just not absolutely amazing. Anyway, okay, back to the card and my random rambling of geeky stuff. So you can see the difference in the colors. You also see the difference in the texture of the stamping with the Distress ink. Distress Oxide inks are smooth, they're beautiful, they're pretty. Distress inks are going to give you more texture to them. They're going to have more light and dark places in them. They're going to be brighter. Here, look at the difference. So I'm going to bring these up here. I'm going to zoom out and you can bring these up here. And you can see the difference in the colors. They're the same color, but the brightness, the card on the right is Distress inks. The card on the left is Distress Oxide ink. And in the pictures, you'll see that they are, the U part of them is very lined from the letters behind it for the Oxide one. The black soot of the Distress ink is actually darker than the black soot of the Distress Oxide inks. And that black soot is black. It is absolutely fantastically dark. I wish that I had an actual ink that was that dark, that, you know, I could use for my Copic coloring. I have to stamp a couple times to get that dark. And I absolutely love my Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink that I stamp with to do Copic coloring, because it doesn't smear at all. I have never had it smear, ever, no matter how many times I've stamped it. I set it aside and let it dry for a moment, but I have never had it really smear on me. Now, I have had the other inks that I have used smear on me if I have to stamp it more than once to get a good line and a good image there. Just, those are my observations. Okay. So to finish this off, I'm going to put some, these are Nuvo, I think it's called White Blizzard, and it's just the glitter drop for it, and it dries clear, just has a little bit of glitter, and I'm going to put those all the way across it. The one thing about doing this across Distress Oxide ink is it's going to pick up the color that's under it. It's going to activate the ink on the paper, and that ink is going to absorb into that dot, and it's going to change the color of the dot just slightly. So just keep that in mind as well. And don't forget to head over to the blog. If you have some Father's Day cards that you might need to finish up, I have a die cut SVG free file over on my blog that I shared yesterday, and it's the last Father's Day card that I did. You can head over to my blog and snag that. So don't forget to do that. Don't forget to make your Father's Day cards either. Thank you so much for joining me today. Y'all have an amazing day. Don't forget to subscribe.